Hi folks, it's Meandering Mike here in the Man Cave of Madness just before midnight. And we are talking about live streams in the wargaming space on YouTube that I participate in the chat, typing. I've been on one of these shows in person, uh, but uh, we're talking about ones that mostly I participate in chat that I think you might enjoy, but these are my ones that I participate in the most. Uh, so what we're seeing here is Ardwolf's Lair. The show is called The Counter Clipping Show. Yes, Ardwolf, also known as Gary, sits there and clips counters for his hex and counter war games, or they could be area movement or point to point, whatever. And he sips whiskey or scotch or brandy or whatever, and he talks about war games. In the past, used to be a little more free form in terms of topic. He'd have a loose, impromptu topic, and then we'd get off topic, and that was all good. The year 2023 was much more organized. He comes up with a topic pretty much every week and tries to stick to it the best he can. But of course, given so many people participating in the chat, that things often get derailed, and that's actually good. It's a good participation. It's allows for creativity of discussion, and it often brings up topics for future shows. Um, so if you enjoy a lot of participation, seeing a lot of side conversations going on in the typed chat, this is definitely the show for you. If you don't like distractions, just listen to Ardwolf, listen to Arty, and ignore the chat on the side. Um, but if you like a community of people discussing and talking, and it's a pretty friendly community. Occasionally, there are some feathers that get ruffled. People might take a joke the wrong way, misunderstand what someone said. Um, Occasionally, the trolls come in from the outside and have to be gotten rid of. But for the most part, it's quite a cordial and friendly place. Lots of good interchange of ideas and stuff. So that's the Counter Clipping Show on Ardwolf's Lair channel. That is on Mondays at 5 p.m. Pacific time. I'm going to give you all these times in my time zone. You can translate, but I want to just stay consistent, and I'll try to do it all in Pacific time. So the next one I'm going to discuss also has to do with Ardwolf's Lair. Now, it's the Dan and Arty Show. Dan and Arty. Um, Dan has his channel, No Name's Here, and of course, Arty, Ardwolf, Gary, has his channel. They used to alternate a show on Tuesdays, back and forth between their two channels. Some point it moved to Thursday, and it's out back to Tuesday. But at some point, they decided to give it a new name when they moved to Thursday, called it the Chit Show. Yeah, and you can slur that a little bit, the Chit Show. Um, and it's primarily hosted on Ardwolf's Lair's channel, even though Dan on his channel, known as here, will often rebroadcast it, or they use Streamlard to split the thing, so you can watch it on either. But I find it easiest to I can always know it's going to come up with on Ardwolf's Lair, and Arty's usually pretty good about getting those notifications up early, so you know when it's coming and all that stuff. So that's good. So this show is more interview based. In the other show, the Counter Clipping Show, Gary has had some guest stars on to talk, but usually they try to use this Dan and Arty show to host. So if you can see over here, for example, Mike Ranella, Mark Herman, Jerry White, Fred Serval, etc. Quite a few interesting folks that they have to interview, but they also have some topics about various things such as historicity and the Gelman amnesia effect. Where were some of the other ones here? Wargaming community, discussing various publishers, SPI versus Avalon Hill, Decision Games, etc. Talking about particular, I mean, he has designers on the interview talking about their games, but frequently like a retrospective on Richard Berg, etc., things like that. So the Chit Show with Dan and Arty, this is on now, Tuesdays, at 4:30 Pacific time. I think it used to be on at 4 o'clock before it moved to Thursdays, but it's still at 4:30, but it's back on Tuesdays until further notice. Various reasons for that. All right. So now, both of those shows, I watch them quite regularly, participate in the chat a lot, and I've maybe only missed one or two per year, right? Sometimes you can catch them later and watch it and put in the comments, but in the actual live active chat, it's a joy to participate and do that. Now, I've not participated in this third one as much. As you can see here, we've got Nanguea's channel. Let me scroll here so you can see his icon in that. This used to be called the Christopher Press channel, so you may have heard me refer to that in the past on my videos. It's now called Nanguea. He is a delver into Der Weltkrieg. You notice he has 1,000 videos. Live stream, I'm not sure how long he's been. It's been more than a year, but maybe 16 months, somewhere give or take. The focus now for this channel is more on World War I in general, World War I gaming, World War I history. If you're really interested in the Der Weltkrieg aspect, look at the earlier live streams and the earlier videos. Nanguea has a very special blend of the game, the war game, Der Weltkrieg, and sort of narrative role-playing style hybrid. So if you're interested in sort of seeing or hearing about what you can do in terms of immersive play that you make more narrative or more role-playing, there's a wealth of material here to mine. If you're interested more in World War I history in general, the live stream over the last few months has moved more towards that, where he talks about books and movies, various websites available about World War I history. He does trivia. He's visited museums. He's talked about lectures that he's attended. So there's a wealth of material. This live stream is on Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. Pacific. It used to be at 6 and then at 7, and now it's at 8, and so it's more accessible to me. I've only missed a couple. I've dragged my butt out of bed and attended these, but I think we're getting a bigger force of people as the times push back, that there's a lot of people getting involved now with these discussions more than there were when it was the wee hours of the morning. And, we had a handful of core people doing discussions, but it's getting bigger. So if you want to get in on World War I gaming and or history discussion, this is a channel worth checking out and subscribing to. All right, this next one is one live stream show, but 3 channels. Just the way the Dan and Arty Chit Show is 2 YouTubers, 2 channels, 1 show. This one is 3 YouTubers, 1 show. Now, I'm going to show you a little Facebook thing here first. Okay, Tack Up Wargaming. This is the Facebook name of the group. The main host, ID Jester, the show The War Room, the show is called The War Room, was hosted on his channel for the longest time. And this is their Facebook group. There's also a Consim World group. I don't normally use Consim World. I only show up there once or twice a year, following something, and I end up looking at some information there. But I'm a active person on Facebook besides YouTube. But Tack Up Wargaming, you can join. you can find out here which channel. Let's see here. I should have had this set up here. Here we go. Here is an example, right? Oh, come on. It's quite an active group. For only having like 240 members, it is quite an active group. Okay, so here's an example of announcement. Nope, that's a playthrough. Sorry, folks. There we go. The War Room, as hosted by Anthony Kinner on Facebook. Tony's Board Life. Okay, so they rotate between their channel now. Tony's Board Life, Rough Swordsman Wargamer, and Arty Jester, who used to be the prime host. So you can always find out which channel's on. So I highly recommend you subscribe to all three of their channels. Arty Jester, Rough Swordsman Wargamer. We'll show each channel in a little bit here. And Tony's Board Life. And if you have your notifications on, you'll always be able to find out who's hosting it. And they'll tell you at the end of each episode of the last one when the next one's going to be. Now, it so happens that I'm filming this on Thursday. This will get out on Friday. There's no show this Saturday. So if you're watching this thing, oh, I'm going to go listen to the War Room. You can go listen to the old stuff on the channel. But they're not going to have one this Saturday. This is like the first time in umpteen years that they actually haven't had a show. But that's the circumstances of people getting busy lives and doing things. But so you can come to the Facebook here and participate. There's people that participate in the live stream in the chat. There's also designers that get interviewed here that are here. So we saw some with Thomas Van here, Dean Vincent Teller. That's Rough Swordsman Wargamer. He's the Brit of the group. Eric Guy, he's also got a channel. And I think yeah, he was on the live stream once being interviewed as like a new wargamer. What's someone who's new to the wargaming hobby? Now, let's go look at their individual channels here. So, Arty Jester here, he's the primary. So you can see like he hosted these episodes, and way in the past, if you ever want to go back and look at old ones, it's huge slew of stuff. Now, this guy's really prolific on his main channel. He got tons of non-wargaming content, and in the last year and a half or so, I would say that most of his normal content is not war games anymore. It's mostly other board games and tabletop games and sports games. He does a huge amount of live streams, but on the War Room, it's all talk about war games. All right. As I mentioned, Rough Swordsman Wargamer. All right. So here's an example of his thumbnail for when he's hosting the show here. If you look at this just wonderful logo here, you can recognize the three gentlemen here between their short or non-existent hair and their glasses. That this is Arty Jester, this is Rough here, and this is Tony, and you can just see their shape of their faces and the tilt of their heads, and that's them. That's the War Room, man. All right. Now, for example, this though, like Rough has hosted this one. You're also seeing on his channel the ones that got streamed from the other channels. This was streamed by Arty Jester. This one was streamed by Tony Board Life, and they're rebroadcasting. You know, they're using the StreamYard or whatnot to split stuff, or they don't all use StreamYard. I think some use something different. But that's the newfangled technology where you can split the stream or republish it later on another channel. And then there's Tony's Board Life. This is his example of his thumbnail. Tony's Board Life hosting, and same thing here. Well, this is I think this is just showing up here because of the way I searched, and his name is in the description down there. So that's not really wasn't hosted on his channel, but he's being mentioned there. But so those three channels, Arty Jester, Rough Swordsman Wargamer, and Tony's Board Life. Subscribe to those guys. The War Room, it's a great stream. They do things like this week or this day in history. Ruff hosts that. Arty Jester does a guess the game. It's like 20 questions where he's thinking of a game and people ask yes or no questions to narrow it down and try to figure out which game he's talking about. And Tony presents stuff about things being new released or things in the GMT news or things like that. And they're just, topics, what's the difference between tactical, operational, strategic, all sorts of various different kind of content there. It's a great live stream with a lot of participation in the chat. So this one, I also only maybe missed 1 or 2 episodes here, but I put it in 4th place because of this new split between, used to always be on ID Gestures channel, and now it's between the 3. So in terms of any one channel that I'm going to, it's now split between that. So I figured that made sense to not have in the top spot, even though I watch them just about as often as those other ones. Before I go on to the last live streaming show that I want to talk about, I want to do some honorable mentions. These are ones that are not primarily focused on war games. One is Liz Davidson's Beyond Solitaire channel. She's an avid war gamer. She loves war games, but she also does other tabletop games. She does even cover some computer games. She does a lot of designer interviews. She has this podcast that's been going on. She doesn't do it every week. She has like a season where she, I don't know, between 30 to 40 shows or something. A lot of really good interviews. But since it's mostly focused on the solitaire aspect, and even though she's honorable mention, she's like 6th place here amongst these. But sometime in the future, like next month or 2, I'm gonna do a show on other channels that I like to watch and not necessarily participate in live. I don't get as much chance to do live streams because some percentage of our shows are live and a lot are not. A lot of reviews and things like that aren't live. But I will have an upcoming show soon. Another one that I want to mention is Not Jay's Tabletop Gaming. Now, this is one that's normally on Wednesday evenings. Did I mention the date? I'm going to go roll back. Okay, Saturday, 1 p.m. Pacific time for the War Room. I don't think I mentioned that. So we have 8 a.m. in the morning for Nanguaya on Saturdays and 1 p.m. for the War Room. And honorable mention for Not Jay's Tabletop Gaming. That's Wednesdays, but it's mostly miniature focused. Now, a lot of miniature painting, crafting, basing, creating terrain. Now, there are people that participate in this, not just Not Jay. Not Jay, by the way, is named Chris. His brother is named Jay, and that's why he's called Not Jay. But he has a couple of 5 other folks that come in. There's usually always 2 or 3 or 4 people online participating. I've been on that show a couple of times participating live on the video, not just on the chat. But that's normally Wednesdays, 6 p.m. Pacific time. Occasionally they'll also do Saturday shows at some, I don't know. I don't think it's a regular Saturday time or not. But so Saturdays often are very busy for me and I can't catch all the shows. But so honorable mention there for Not Jay. There are war game discussions for some of the guys. So often there's a war game or 2 being played in the background, but the primary focus is on miniatures. So I'll cover other channels in a future video for this. So now let's get to the 5th one here, Homoludens. This is Fred Serval. He's a Frenchman living in England. His focus is on war games, historical games. The name of the channel, Homoludens, let's see so you can see this, Homoludens, basically means game-playing man, or man the player, just like Homo sapiens. Now, I always learned it when I was younger as thinking man, but it really kind of means wise or astute human. So like the Latin for sapiens more has the connotation of astute or wise rather than thinking per se, but thinking man was I was thinking about. This is like game playing man, or man the player, Homo Ludens. It's based on a book written by a Dutch author in the 1938, I think. So that's the name of the channel. But Fred has semi-regular live streams about once a week, sometimes 2 in a week, and sometimes might go 3 or 4 before he's a live stream, depending. He has, for example, if you can see here, a teach and play with Mark Herman, Rebel Fury, his upcoming game. Here was one with the Algeria War with Brian Train. He has previews of games that are not out yet, but he's got access to pre-release copies. So Fred himself is a game designer now. He had Red Flag Over Paris that came out a couple of years ago. Was well received. I think it was won an award or two. Some people say that's not a war game. It's more in the historical conflict simulation space, and that's fine either way you want to describe it. He's also currently coming out soon with a Jest of Robin Hood, and whether that's a guest or a jest, Gest is how it's spelled. That's coming out soon. So a wide variety of things that he covers, interviews, previews, playthroughs, discussions of various topics. Amabel Holland here, Liz Davidson they've been doing a war game archaeology discussion, Liz Davidson and Fred Serval, and they usually have one or so other people coming in on a semi-regular basis, and they've been like dissecting old issues of the General Magazine and just talking about the development of the war game hobby from its origins way back in the 1950s, and again focused on tabletop wargamings, not miniatures, not Kriegspiels, but war games as most American know war games. So, interesting channel, a lot of interesting content. I do not watch it as regularly. The times are sometimes, off on European time, and so it's not a regularly scheduled time every week. And so I maybe see 40 to 60% of the live streams and don't always catch them all. So, but whenever I do, I try to, participate in the chat as much. So that's why this one's here at 5th place. It's still a really good live stream, quite interesting, but I haven't had an opportunity to engage as much as I did with these other 4 live stream shows. And remember, it's actually more channels again. Don't forget that the War Room live stream is 3 channels, just as the Chit Show is 2 channels. So I think we're going to call it quits there. This was my 2023 review of the wargaming live streams that I participate in the most, that I think you may enjoy. Now, some of you on my channel are not into war games at all. You're here because of miniatures, or you're here because of other tabletop games, or maybe you're even here because of my posts on food stores. There might be a few of you left. And I think my posts on war games have chased away most of the food storage people. Changing demographics on the channel, but definitely check these out if you're interested in wargaming and these. And if you want to participate in wargaming community, having discussions and feedback, and enjoy the chat back and forth. And again, it's a friendly community, 98% of the time. Just remember, sometimes, cut people a little slack because maybe people are misunderstanding each other. And it's okay to step away if someone ruffles feathers or pushes a button, and come back. Just don't abandon the shows and the channels just because sometimes some people are pushing your buttons. So that's the only downside of a large community of people, is that sometimes we have personality differences. I do want to mention one more show that is a wargaming show that didn't make the cut. And that's because they're not as regular, and that is Whiskey Charlie. That's a show that has 3 main participants: Mo's Game Table, Maurice, Mo, the Big Board Wargaming Kev, and the Gimpy Gamer, Nate. Uh, they are not on as regular. I haven't always watched them as much, partly because it's regular and it hit or miss. And I like to participate in the chat. Sometimes I don't agree with all their politics and stuff, so sometimes I need to take a break or whatnot. But most of the time, when the topic is on the games themselves, it's a great show, and I enjoy it. Um, but it's not as regular. So besides, the not actually being able to participate as much because it's not on as much, the fact that it's not as regular means I'm more likely to missing it because it's not on a regular schedule. But it's worth note. So I'm going to call it quits there, folks. Meandering Mike, Man Cave of Madness. It's still before midnight. And want you all to enjoy your new year. I am going to be asking y'all some questions in the community tab about some of the direction for the channel, what kind of things I'm going to do more of, what kind of things I'm going to do less of, in regards to things like food storage and family games versus mini games versus wargaming, etc. We're going to take your feedback and see how we want to do more or less of certain things. So all you out there, take care, ciao, enjoy your games, and enjoy your live streams.